In the previous video, the flow of methods was discussed. In this video, we will talk about the return statement of a method. In case you don't remember, here are the different components of a method declaration. Within this declaration, we must include a return type. Utilizing return types allows us to transfer value from one method to another. Let's look at an example of what that means. Here's an empty project that I called return stmt with an empty class also called return stmt, with the main method stub included. Outside of the main method stub, I'll create another method, and this method will be called return hello world. I will assign this method an access modifier of public. However, notice we can change this method to private and still use it within our method since both methods belong to the same class. That means, in the case of this example, making this method public or private has little to no effect on the outcome of our code. Next, we will assign a return type of string to this method, and once again, it will be called return hello world. This method will take no parameters. The only thing this method will contain is a return statement. Notice when this method is empty, there is a red line under this method name. If we hover over, we are prompted, this method must return a result of type string. So let's go ahead and type return in this method to make this line go away. Notice now we have a red line under return. That's because we have a return type of string, and we have not told this method which string to return. If we didn't have a return type of string, and instead had a return type of void, this method would no longer look for anything to return. Note that return types can be any primitive type, meaning int, char, boolean, string, and so on. Any method, or like here, void. Now notice how the red line goes away when we change the return type to void. In fact, we can remove the return statement and we won't get a red line under our method name like we did when the return type was string. Once again, because we changed the return type to void, and now this method is no longer looking for a string to return. In this case, the flow of the program will return to the method that invoked it once the statement in the current method is reached. Looking at the Java docs, a method returns to the code that invoked it when it A. completes all the statements of the method, B. reaches a return statement, or C. throws an exception, which we will cover in a later video. Now let's change the return type for the return hello world method back to string and include a return statement that includes the string we want to return. Of course, this string is going to be hello world. Using a println statement in the main method, we can test the return hello world method out. But notice we have an error. This error prompts, cannot make a static reference to the non-static method return hello world from the type return stmt. We must add the static keyword to our method. Adding the static keyword allows a method to be invoked without the method having any association to an object. In other words, we don't have to type, for instance, student1.return hello world to use this method. You may remember using methods this way in the previous video. If you go back to the videos where we invoked methods this way, you will notice we did not use the static keyword on these methods. But for now, we will use the static keyword, run our program, and see hello world is printed to the console. We can change some things around in this basic program to see how the return statement can perform operations as well. Let's change the return type to int, call this method 2+2, and instead of returning a string, we will return 2 + 2. And if we call this method in our println statement within our main method, we can see the operation is performed and 4 is output to the console. Now, you might be wondering why return statements? We could just type 2 + 2 within our println statement and get the same output with less code. While this is true for such a small program like this, you may be able to see how this may be useful when performing operations even just a little bit more complex than this, like one using the quadratic formula. Of course, you could type the quadratic formula every time you want to perform the operation, or you could just call the method called quad, in which the formula would only be typed once in the development of the program. This concept can be enhanced by including method parameters, a topic we will save for the next video.